Number one Ibble Dibble here. Hello, friends. Welcome to part 5 of my series, Megan's Floptastic Flaws, in which I discuss all of the personal shortcomings Megan must overcome if she ever wants to sell us anything. In part 1, I discussed Megan's low taste level and lack of likability. In part 2, I discussed her inability to network effectively. In part 3, I reviewed how her snobbery will not help her. And in part 4, I covered her ignorance of the luxury marketing sphere. You can only put so many cards on a video, but I will link those videos in my description box below. Today, I want to talk about how Megan's a fuddy-duddy and it's holding her back. By fuddy-duddy, I don't mean bumbling, out of touch, stickler for who cares. I mean a merchant of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and occasional disseminator of disinformation. Fear, uncertainty, doubt is a manipulation tactic and has been common business and political parlance since the 60s, maybe earlier. It's used primarily in propaganda and fields where propaganda is the name of the game. Advertising, PR, politics, cults. It's the strategy of creating negative perceptions of a person, people, practice, presentation, or product, not by citing contradictory evidence or dismantling faulty logic, but solely by sowing fear and/or uncertainty and doubt, bolstered if required with a bit of disinformation. As the title imbuing tobacco exec, quoted by David Michaels in his 2008 book put it, quote, "Doubt is our product, since it is the best means of competing with the body of fact that exists in the minds of the general public. It is also the means of establishing a controversy," unquote. Meghan and Harry constantly and recklessly fud around with people, as do their Sussex squad, two of whom have gifted me with great examples to use in this video to illustrate good FUD and bad FUD and how the message is only as effective as its bearer. First, an example of really bad FUD courtesy of Mari, who commented on my Meg's Floptastic Flaws Part 4 She Will Never Be Luxury video. White, racist, hateful propaganda. This channel is typical of those entities perpetrating prejudice and racially biased base content. Keep up the good work, guys. You lower the planet's frequency one show at a time. If you're wondering what of my response was cut off after read more, it's just stupidity and audacity. Sort of rich that she uses the word propaganda as she literally writes it. This video is talking about French graduate schools. One of you kind commenters said it was a SWOT analysis worth 10,000 bucks. Thank you very much, by the way. And this is the kind of comment I get. As I responded to her, this is just race baiting trash. I didn't mention race once in this video. White racist is obviously not only presumptuous, but trying to drive fear, hateful propaganda. Again, maybe if you hadn't seen the video and you were just scrolling through the comments, you would get the impression the video was something it wasn't. But if you are watching the video while reading the comments, all of this is so wildly off base. It's a dud of a FUD. But then even for people who maybe haven't seen or don't understand the video, she veers into crazy conspiracy country, diminishing her own credibility. Who are those entities perpetrating prejudice and racially biased base content? Who? What entities? Who are you talking about? Entities she can't name, prejudice she can't describe. For the kicker, we have more disinformation to top off this complete post of total disinformation. You lower the planet's frequency one show at a time. How stupid do you have to be to think frequency is a big word? Lower the planet's frequency? Wow, we might have a PhD on our hands. I think 9 out of 10 people reading this comment would not be affected by it. It's really bad FUD. Now for an example of far better FUD, courtesy of Lizzy commenting on my Megan is not 43% Nigerian video. This was an interesting look at the geolocation of transatlantic slaves in the UK. She corrected it to US later. But you lost me with the family tree. For instance, if a great-grandparent has 35% Nigerian DNA, it's not correct to divide it by the relationship to M, such as 1/8 for great-grandparent or 25% for grandparents. Well, Lizzy, you're right. It's not absolutely guaranteed exactly correct, though this is the best, most generous, I might add, possible mathematical estimate given the incomplete information in the public domain. Though I stated this multiple times throughout the video, it is a long video, and Lizzy could catch someone here whose attention strayed. I now realize, assumed people watching the video would not require an explanation of statistics we learn in 10th grade math class or biology we learned in 8th grade science. But Lizzy does. And in fairness, there are probably many other listeners who genuinely don't have that level of education, albeit low, didn't understand it in the first place, weren't that great in school, or don't remember it because it didn't serve them later in life. You notice Lizzy isn't presenting any alternative methods of more accurate estimation. She is merely sowing uncertainty and doubt. And she caps it with fatalist language. Lost me at. If enough people who don't know what a bell curve is read this comment, they may very well believe her that I made some sort of devastating miscalculation that throws off the whole result, when in fact, mathematically, her point is moot. But how many people who became uncertain will actually bother to look it up or figure it out? Almost no one. Lizzy's FUD relies on the reader being distracted, busy, indifferent, lazy, flattering themselves that their failure to remedy their own ignorance constitutes healthy skepticism, or perhaps even sharing her ulterior motives. Most people fall into one or more of these categories, so this is very effective FUD. Many of us think of propaganda as direct statements of fact or judgment we can accept or reject or dispute, but it rarely comes in that form. Effective propaganda is all the misleading framing and fake context you've accepted unquestioningly over time. All the bullshit you encounter every day that you don't think about much or think of as slipping through the cracks, that's actually being forced down your throat. Effective propaganda doesn't ask you to swallow a belief whole, like Mari. Effective propaganda nudges you into disbelief and eventually distrust little by little, like Lizzy. Before I finish up here, if you're wondering why I'm so convinced Lizzy is a sugar and not just a confused person, it's because she publicly displays me as one of her subscriptions, yet has blocked me. So I can't see her channel, a practice I've found very typical among the Sussex squad, who, unlike the Megxiteers, actually are quite networked and do engage in group downvoting and reporting schemes. What's your favorite example of H&M fudding around? For me, it's a toss-up. The original, iconic, life-shattering act of FUD is definitely the Oprah interview. It was just so bold, so bald-faced, so obnoxious, really shocking stuff. He tried to sow fear of the monarchy, uncertainty of its future, and doubt around the morals royals live by. So much toxic FUD, even Oprah had to admit it was disingenuous and pull it off the air. I'll never stop calling people Nopra, Copra, Mopra. On the other hand, I was genuinely and deeply beyond disgusted. I don't even have a word for it. Deeply offended, perhaps, when Meghan appeared at that mental health summit in New York to shill an app to parents whose children had committed suicide and proceeded to proselytize to them about the necessity of censorship to save future children from suicide. Just disgusting, abusive, insidious, cruel, sociopathic levels of attempted manipulation there. Though, thankfully, I think it's fair to say no one took her seriously due to her trying to turn it into a fashion show, getting handsy with the US Surgeon General, her weird face parade of fake, doe-eyed, sympathetic, and listening expressions, and more than anything else, her profound ineloquence. Of course, there are endless more examples. Let me know your favorite in the comments below. Industries, companies, even freelance hucksters like H&M can buy themselves time with this tactic. Maybe decades, like the tobacco industry. Maybe lifetimes, like both of our unacceptable US presidential candidates. But the tactic is always a ticking time bomb. As trust is lost with each debunked lie, threat that fails to materialize, and every remedy offered and accepted proves in time far worse than the disease it was supposed to cure, an ever smaller number of people can be provoked to buy in. Fuddy-duddies have to cement their gains before the tide turns, from fear, uncertainty, and doubt to annoyance, dialogue, and receipts. And H&M have. Congrats to them. They won. In a sense, they've already reaped the benefits of all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt they sowed about the royals, the UK, the British press, even random social media users they simply don't like. They got hundreds of millions of dollars for doing nothing except defrauding almost everyone who ever took an interest in them, from King Charles to Oprah to Netflix. They got the big Netflix deal, the big book deal, the Spotify deal, the incoming settlement from News Group. They even got a few people permanently or temporarily, unfairly demonetized or deplatformed from Twitter and YouTube. This has been going on for years at this point, with everyone observing their worldwide privacy tour quite keenly, thanks to their huge investment in staying in the press. Unfortunately, as a result, their time bomb is blown. Fears are allayed, uncertainties are clarified, doubt is cleared. Anyone who wished to, and many who didn't, have become very familiar with them and their playbook. More and more people see, and will continue to see them, for what they are: greedy, antisocial, hypocritical scammers, and outright liars with insufferable egos. Hence, each new provocation will inspire less and less fear, uncertainty, and doubt, until it inspires nothing at all beyond boredom, perhaps with a bit of disgust. And what sells luxury goods, especially food? Like boredom and a bit of disgust. People don't associate Meghan with happiness or joy or friendship or family or food or fashion. People associate Meghan Markle with fear. If you ask me to picture Gwyneth Paltrow, I remember her in that pink Ralph gown getting her Oscar. If I think a bit harder, I remember her in a twinning Instagram post with her daughter. If you ask me to picture Martha Stewart, I picture her bantering with Snoop. If I think a bit harder, I remember how my mother's generation absolutely coveted and collected those magazines. If you ask me to think of Meghan, I think of this, and this, and this, and this. No one wants to look like this. No one wants to feel like this. No one wants to buy this lifestyle. She made a mint on selling fear, but when you live by the FUD, you die by the FUD. She might limp along collecting speakers' fees here and there to sell more FUD, like she did at South by Southwest, but she'll never sell anything else. That's my rant for today. Toodles! Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.